There are very few stories in the world of Bitcoin that have been as dramatic and powerful as the present legal dispute between Ripple's XRP and the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, better known as the SEC. This is because the SEC is the entity that is responsible for overseeing the financial markets. This particular proceeding has been brought to the attention of all of the associated parties, which includes investors, regulators, and enthusiasts of cryptocurrencies. The XRP community, which is lovingly referred to as the XRP Army, has valiantly withstood what many people view to be an unjust and misguided onslaught by the SEC over the period of several years since it was first introduced. Their doggedness and unwavering commitment have, without a doubt, served as a source of inspiration throughout the entirety of this process. An extremely historic update is something that we are delighted to share with you today. Congress has taken the rare step of requesting that the Securities and Exchange Commission print a formal public apology to the holders of XRP. This is an extraordinary action that has been taken. This move, which has never been done before, symbolizes a significant turning point in the ongoing drama that is taking place. In the first place, we have to start with the congressional directive itself in order to get a better understanding of how serious the current situation is. There is a clear statement that was incorporated in the government law that states, "The Securities and Exchange Commission shall issue a formal apology to holders of XRP for its misguided enforcement action." This remark was contained in the deep and frequently confusing phrasing of the law. A provision like this was incorporated into the statute. Despite its apparent simplicity, this line yet carries a significant deal of weight. It is not only a symbolic gesture. Rather, it is a public acknowledgement by lawmakers that the approach adopted by the SEC concerning XRP was fundamentally flawed and extremely unfair. This is a public acknowledgement. An important item of legislation that has an effect on the funding provided by the federal government is known as a spending bill. It is a testament to the gravity of the situation and the growing frustration that is taking place within the halls of power that Congress felt obligated to include this language in a funding measure given the current state of affairs. This chapter sheds light on a moment that is both rare and significant, the moment when political supervision directly crosses with regulatory enforcement. This moment is being discussed in the context of the ongoing discussion regarding the regulation of cryptocurrencies in the United States. This results in a dynamic that is completely unique to itself. Not only is the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, being held accountable behind closed doors, but it is also being held accountable in the court of public opinion, with the eyes of the nation and the world watching carefully. This is the first time in years that the SEC has been held accountable. In more ways than one, this is a key milestone in the journey. This victory is a symbolic victory that resonates strongly with the XRP Army and the innumerable supporters who have fought valiantly against what they perceive to be regulatory overreach and institutional bias. They think that this victory is a victory that resonates with them. Both the incentive for this move by Congress and the impact of a single incident did not develop out of thin air. Rather, it was the result of a series of events. Instead, it is the conclusion of rising frustration among lawmakers who have closely examined the SEC's handling of cryptocurrency legislation over the years. This discontent has been growing over the course of the years. The accumulation of this dissatisfaction has been going on for a considerable amount of time. This complaint has been directed against the agency on multiple occasions, and it has been accused of lacking both clarity and consistency in its approach to digital assets when it comes to dealing with digital assets. Numerous members of Congress have expressed their concern on multiple occasions that the agency's enforcement techniques have impeded innovation, discouraged investment, and produced uncertainty for both entrepreneurs and investors alike. These concerns have been stated by a number of members of Congress. Legislators assert that the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has unfairly targeted certain projects while allowing others to run with a significantly lower level of scrutiny. This is done with the intention of creating a feeling of unfairness and unpredictability in the market. In the end, this growing dissatisfaction among policymakers and industry executives reached a boiling point, which resulted in a stringent mandate that not only calls out the mistakes made by the SEC, but also requires a public apology. This announcement was made in order to announce the beginning of a new age of accountability and openness in the regulation of financial markets. The tremendously symbolic effect of this apology stretches far beyond the political and judicial struggles that have been going on in recent times. It is not sufficient to consider only the monetary value or the market value of the item. Respect, justice, and the recognition of the community's voice are all extremely important, and their significance cannot be emphasized. With all sincerity, this apology is a form of justice for each and every XRP holder who has experienced feelings of marginalization, attack, or abandonment at the hands of regulatory bodies throughout the course of their experience. By doing so, it acknowledges the personal and financial toll that the N4C EMEN actions have taken, and it actually reflects a willingness to move forward with a more balanced and educated approach to the oversight of Bitcoin. In other words, it shows that it is willing to move forward with the oversight of Bitcoin. A message is being communicated by Congress in this particular instance. Regulators have a responsibility to pay attention to the community, and when they are shown to be in error, they are required to make efforts to rectify the situation. The members of parliament were subjected to political pressure as a consequence of their efforts, which they were unable to ignore any longer. This only exemplifies the potential that a community that is connected to one another possesses to exert influence over policy and to challenge the accountability of powerful institutions. The purpose of this is to serve as a reminder to all those individuals who are enthusiastic about cryptocurrencies that activism and engagement are, in all honesty, important instruments for determining the future of the industry. This apology is illustrative of a turning point as viewed through the lens of the Securities and Exchange Commission. The government has traditionally held the reins of power when it comes to the regulation of securities. Nevertheless, the rapid rise of cryptocurrencies has presented difficulties to the traditional regulatory frameworks that have been in place throughout the course of history. The actions that the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, took against XRP, which were commonly criticized for being too reactive and imprecise, left investors and businesses in a state of uncertainty. This was the effect of the activities that the SEC took. It is a significant indicator that the regulatory structure needs to reform in order to become more open, fair, and responsive to the unorthodox qualities of blockchain technology. The fact that Congress has been required to issue an apology is a strong evidence of this necessity. It is planned that the public reading of the apology will take place at 3 o'clock. When it comes to the world of cryptocurrencies, this will not only be a statement, rather it will be an event of historic proportions. When the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission rises to deliver these speeches, we will be witnesses to a moment of reckoning and public duty that is unlike any other. There will be a rise in the amount of activity on social media platforms like Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook as the XRP community and the cryptocurrency world as a whole react to this peculiar circumstance. The apology not only signifies the conclusion of a chapter, but it also signifies the beginning of a new age for XRP and for the regulation of cryptocurrencies in the United States. Both of these landmarks are significant. When we think back on this time, we ought to make sure that we take into account the wider repercussions that will result from it. This apology is a direct result of democracy being put into action, specifically the voices of regular people having an influence on the decisions that the government makes about policy. Additionally, it acts as a signal to regulatory agencies that representatives of the public and lawmakers want the policymaking process to be transparent and unbiased. Over the course of the subsequent days and weeks, the repercussions of this apology will almost certainly cause tremors to be felt across the regulatory circles and the markets. The implications of this for future enforcement actions will be a topic of discussion among legal analysts, policymakers, and industry professionals who are specialists in their fields. As a consequence of this, will the Securities and Exchange Commission reconsider its stance with regard to other alternatives to cryptocurrencies? A remarkable ability for resilience has been demonstrated by the XRP community during the whole of this journey, despite the fact that they were presented with legal obstacles and uncertainty. They continue to maintain their unity, keep informed, and speak out loud. A community that is dedicated and well-organized has the power to influence the course that history takes, regardless of the magnitude of the opposition that may be present. The fact that this moment of legislative intervention and forced apologies serves as a strong reminder of this fact is brought to your attention. In the present moment, what actions should you take? Please make sure that your calendars are updated with a reminder for 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, EST. Make it a point to tune in so that you may witness the head of the SEC publicly acknowledging that they made a mistake. This is a moment that will be remembered for a very long time in the history of cryptocurrencies.